Are you feeling like you need to get some shut eye? Or do you find yourself sleeping with one eye open? Another favorite of mine is that I'm not really sleeping, I'm just resting my eyes. On today's episode of Somnilopod, we're going to look at the relationship that eyes have to our sleep and some things that sleep can actually do to our eyes as well. I'm Jay, and this is Somnilopod. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm so glad you joined us. I was looking through, of course, scrolling through Facebook recently, and I came across a meme of a picture of Gandalf from the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit movies. And in the picture, he was actually sleeping. And Gandalf sleeps with his eyes open. He was laying there with his hand on a stone and looked like he was protecting it. And it got me to thinking. And just as an aside, yes, I know it was called a Palantir for all of my other Lord of the Rings nerd fans, but it got me to thinking that there are people that do sleep with their eyes open. I wanted to take a closer look at those people that simply are not able to close their eyes, either completely or partially, in order to get a good night's sleep. The actual disorder is called nocturnal lagophthalmos. And believe it or not, it's a lot more common than you think. The National Sleep Foundation estimates that about 20% of us, that's 1 in 5, have difficulty closing our eyes completely during sleep. So I wanted to take a little bit closer look at that and just sort of get an idea or get a clearer picture of what's actually happening there. So I needed to back up just a little bit and ask myself, why do we close our eyes to go to sleep to begin with? Well, you can imagine there are two main reasons. And the first main reason is to actually protect the eyes. They are some important organs that are stuck in our face, so we need to make sure that they are protected from environmental harm. The flotsam and jetsam that's floating around in the atmosphere, dust, hair, things like that. We want to protect them while we're sleeping to keep them from getting into the eyes and causing damage. And it's also to help us hydrate our eyes. So keeping the bad stuff out of our eyes is one of the main reasons, but also a secondary reason and possibly one of the bigger reasons, at least for our purposes here. We close our eyes to limit the amount of environmental cues that we're receiving to our brain at night. Now, there are some very specialized cells inside the back of the eye, and they produce a protein called melanopsin. And this protein is actually triggered by light. So light comes into the eyes, triggers this protein to send a signal to a small bit of tissue in our brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And this section of our brain is what's responsible for controlling our circadian rhythms. These are the rhythms that help dictate when we're awake and when we're asleep, and they're driven by environmental cues like light. So if the suprachiasmatic nucleus is receiving information from this protein to trigger being awake, then it's actually going to do what it's supposed to do and try to keep us awake. Since we are what are called diurnal, which means that we are awake during the day and we're supposed to be sleeping at night, the circadian rhythms help us maintain that aspect of our biology. So what would actually cause nocturnal lagophthalmos to develop? Especially since it's so prevalent, you would think that it would be something that would be very common. Well, there are a lot of different things that can actually lead to it. Some injury to the eye or to the face is one of the more obvious ones. If something happens to your eyelid and it can't close completely, then you're going to have some difficulty there. There is also a nerve, it's called the seventh cranial nerve or the facial nerve, that helps to control the eyelid muscles. And if this nerve is damaged by trauma, then it can actually cause some issues closing the eyes. Also, stroke patients would have an effect, or would be affected on the side of their body that the stroke affected as well. There are some disease processes that actually cause temporary paralysis on the face and in the eyes. One of those diseases is called Bell's palsy. Another is called Guillain-Barré syndrome. But those are not the only ones. Lyme disease, chicken pox, and mumps are among some of the others that can affect our ability to be able to close our eyes completely at night. So if we can't close our eyes, is it really that big a deal? What does it do to you? Well, it actually can do several different things. It can cause damage to the eyes, increased incidence of eye infections, scratches to the cornea from things getting into the eyes, sores, ulcers. Patients with nocturnal lagophthalmos, they always have itchy, irritated eyes. It can affect their vision on a short-term basis, and it can actually cause long-term damage to their eyesight if it's not treated. Fortunately, it is something that can be treated. Typically, what you'll do is look at the cause. So if the cause is trauma or damage to the eye itself or to the face, then surgical interventions may be necessary. But you can also look at the disease process that may be contributing to it and treat those diseases as well. Now, while most of those are temporary, there are some things that patients can do in order to help themselves sort of suffer through this. You can imagine that it's something that would not be a very easy row to hoe. So patients with nocturnal lagophthalmos will use a lot of artificial tears, a lot of eye drops to help create a protective moisture or protective film on their eyes. Another thing that we have all seen before are eye masks. These can actually help keep all of the stuff that's floating around in your bed from getting into the eyes and help to keep them moist during the night. Doctors recommend the use of a humidifier as well. This will help to create more moisture in the air in the bedroom. Also, with regard to snoring, a humidifier in the bedroom can also help with that in some cases as well, just by causing the air to be a little more moist. In some of the more severe cases, they actually have small weights that they use to help weigh the top of the eyelid down so that the patients can close them. And some people are unfortunately forced to use tape in some circumstances to actually close the eyes. So you can imagine the difficulty that these people will have in trying to get a good night's sleep. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't point out the opposite side of the coin. There are actually sleep disorders that can affect our eyes as well. You've heard of glaucoma. Glaucoma has a high incidence of correlation with obstructive sleep apnea, our old friend that Fernando gets to treat now. Obstructive sleep apnea causes high blood pressure and can contribute to high blood pressure, and also can contribute to increased intracranial pressure. That's the pressure inside our head and inside our eyes. So you can imagine over time, as the blood pressure goes up and down throughout the night because of these repetitive cessations in breathing, this can have an effect on the eyes. So it increases the pressure inside the eyes itself, which is what glaucoma is. There's another disorder called central serous chorioretinopathy. We've got a lot of big words this time. I had to look most of them up myself. But this is a disorder where the fluid inside the eye is actually forced underneath the retina into a small pool over top of a nerve, and it can cause some limited vision and blurry vision and soreness as well. So, as I have mentioned in the past, It's important to get that sleep apnea treated and get it taken care of. I really hope this has been an interesting look at something that we may not always think about for you. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to send those to me at j@somnilopod.com. Also, remember to follow us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Feel free to send any comments, corrections, recommendations for future episodes, questions that you might have, anything at all. So until next time, I hope that you're able to get some shut-eye, and we will talk again. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.